Whether you're brand new, a returning player, or someone without a job, you've already heard this term. Tunneling. What does this even mean? And how come everyone has a different opinion on what it means? Surprisingly, there's nuance to every reasoning, and this one is no different for anybody. You have the survivor definition, the killer definition, and the developer's definition for this one term. A survivor's definition of tunneling is at any point a survivor going from one hook state to the next without any other survivors getting hooked. If Laura gets off hook, then gets instantly chased and hooked again, that is tunneling. If Laura just had her first proposal and the killer hooks Aurella, then Laura again, that is not tunneling. But if Laura gets off hook, gets fully healed, pops a generator, then gets hooked again without any other hooks happening, that is still tunneling. This is, of course, a bit deranged and delusional to think that the killer can just avoid doing this, especially when there's less survivors around after someone has died, so killers have made a different definition. Killers view tunneling as going after a survivor that was just unhooked over and over and over again until they are dead. This means that tunneling only happens from the fresh cut of meat to when that survivor is escaping up into the sky. Of course, this can bring a lot of punishment to the killer for being a naughty girl, so it's not always wise to get someone out of the match as fast as possible. Which is why killers have spent months, years even, tinkering in the lab, slaving away, crafting a second version of tunneling. The second version is called soft tunneling. This is where killers ping pong between two survivors and those two survivors only until one of them is dead. So in this scenario, it would go from Dwight, Meg, back to Dwight, who is now gone and dusted. This lets the killer then make a decision based on the amount of gens and resources left on if they should A, get Meg out of the game, or B, go after anyone else who may have deliverance and also bring more perks that require hook activations into play. The answer can only ever be your decision, which is really cool and adds a lot of depth to playing Dead by Daylight. Of course, we still have one more definition of tunneling: the developers. Or, well, the main anti-tunneling perk that exists anyway. Meet Decisive Strike, DS for short, or at most referred to as the gun of God saying no to the killer. The definition of behavior's tunneling is this modern perk description, whatever that may be, and trust me, it's changed a lot throughout the years. Behavior's definition is when a survivor is unhooked, anytime they are downed within the next 60 seconds is a tunnel, as long as they do not progress the game. Tunneling does not exist after the last generator pops. And while this situation isn't entirely wrong, it does bring into question what counts as progressing the game, called conspicuous actions. Healing another player counts. Doing a generator counts. Unhooking counts. Sabotaging counts. Getting healed doesn't count. Totems counts. Invocating counts. But why doesn't getting healed count as progressing the game, but healing others does? Because, to clarify, healing yourself with a medkit or a perk equivalent like self-care does count. A teammate healing you doesn't count. So yes, according to the devs themselves, in any situation, you can get fully healed, then get chased, and that would count as tunneling in the match. Now let me clear up the water just a little bit more because it's still kind of murky. Outside behavior's definition of what tunneling is, the survivor and killer examples are extreme definitions, and most players have a mix between all three of these opinions. My personal opinion, and thus the right one, and one most people agree with, is that going after a survivor that has been freshly unhooked with another option for chasing right in front of you is tunneling. Going around the map for 30 seconds and finding that person again while the unhooker hides isn't tunneling with the express purpose of tunneling, but still technically counts, but I wouldn't deem it as such. Chasing a survivor that has healed isn't tunneling to me. Anything that counts as a conspicuous action, listed earlier, makes it not tunneling. And then when your options are limited and most survivors are slugged, on hook, dead, or writing a forum post about you, means that you're not tunneling. But we're going to touch up on something else for the tunneling epidemic: perks. There's three different kinds of perks correlating to tunneling. You have direct anti-tunnel, indirect anti-tunnel, and co-op anti-tunnel. Direct anti-tunnel is when you're just stuck with your own hand. These perks are like the ones that I listed earlier for the developer's definition of what tunneling is: Decisive Strike. Perks like DS activate after you've been hooked and directly counter or hurt the killer in some way. DS, for instance, stuns the killer by slapping their ass. Off the record gives you endurance for an extremely long time and hides your aura. Dead Hard, with lucky timing, blocks a down from the killer. Indirect anti-tunnel perks are ones that only activate after an unhook but don't directly hurt the killer in some way. Perks such as Resurgence and Second Winds let you get healed faster or automatically after being unhooked, but will still activate even if you never see the killer again for the rest of the game. Most of these are healing perks, but there's a few others such as Breakdown that automatically sabotage the hook. This one is an indirect tunneling perk because it makes the killer have to find a different hook to use, but you're guaranteed value even if they're not tunneling you, because it lasts for 3 minutes. And then the last version of perks are the co-op anti-tunnel perks. These are the truly aggravating ones for killers to deal with, since it relies on other survivors coming in to help out. The main perk of this is Duty of Care right now, which activates when you take a protection hit, giving other survivors within your radius a 25% haste boost. Body blocking in general is co-op anti-tunnel when it happens, and any perk requiring that to activate will fall into this category naturally, like Medal of Man. There's also perks that activate when you unhook someone else, such as Babysitter and Borrow Time, that give direct anti-tunnel buffs, while other perks like Will Make It give indirect anti-tunnel buffs. And that's not including whatever new perks behavior could add in the future. The list is already a couple hundred long on both sides, and most perks fall into multiple categories. Dead Hard, as stated earlier, to be a direct anti-tunnel perk is also just a normal chase perk to have on. Most perks fall into more than one category. Of course, killers have perks too, but not many of them actually help with tunneling. Forced Penance might make survivors broken when they take a protection hit, but you still have to hit a protection hit. Just means they can't heal as fast and come back. The only thing that can truly help with tunneling is a Deep Wound add-on, like the original Pen add-on on Cenobite, to let you eat through the endurance hit easier, since you can't stack endurance on top of Deep Wounds. That's not to say killers can't make tunneling easier though. Some killers like Trapper can't, but not every killer is made equal, as any tier list video will tell you. Bubba, for instance, can saw through health states before I could grab my car keys after chugging a beer. Bubba can down the unhooker, and the one who got unhooked in the same saw charge, getting a down and letting the other person get away. If you decide to tunnel, you can chain your other 2 charges to catch up and down them before they can even reach anything. And Bubba's not the only killer that can eat through endurance so quickly. Pyramid Head, Dracula, Huntress, their powers all naturally eat through this extra time health state a tiny bit faster, making for easier tunneling. And it's entirely up to you on which killer to play if you truly want to tunnel or if you don't want to. Survivors get to decide if they want to bring perks to counteract it or not. Most will bring 1 or 2 just because it's a pretty common strategy, but it's not always a guarantee. And every Dead by Daylight player gets to pick their own definition of tunneling from earlier. Some people have those extreme definitions that I said earlier as their actual definitions of the strategy, and that's totally fine. Dead by Daylight is a game that has existed for over 9 years at this point in time, and as players come and leave, come back, maybe never leave in the first place because they don't have jobs, definitions and ideals grow as we experience new things. Characters, perks, community moments like doing gens, etc. Only you can choose what you define tunneling as. Just don't be surprised if people have differing opinions from you. And that is the Entity's Guide to Tunneling. Of course, I also just like to say that anytime DS pops, you tunneled, and if no one brought DS, you literally can't tunnel, because it's way funnier, and also way more agitating, because I down this survivor, and all 3 of her buddies are dead, yet I still get DS'd.